What's going on, folks? It's Kid Shorty Gaming Nation in the building. Excuse the grittiness, whatever. It is what it is. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about the most overlooked archetype, the Delta male. Right. In Black culture, or in any society, the Delta males or the Delta men, they are the backbone and the core, the foundation. Fix my glasses. Foundation to any community and society. They are the backbone when it comes to a nuclear family, because most nuclear families and most of the populations come from the Delta male getting into a monogamous relationship with a woman and then creating a structure, right? The Delta male make up the middle class. They make up the middle to upper class. So they keep the engine going, right? They're your construction worker, your military men. They are your police force. They are your everyday service people, right? And this male, the Delta male, in these spaces, like the Manosphere, red pill niggas, and game and Mac niggas. This male, when it comes to the player and game niggas, they call this male a loser. In Black culture, they call this male a loser. When he's actually the backbone of the culture. He's the most disrespected in Black culture. When it comes to the red pill Manosphere guys, which I'm very disappointed in them, is that they use the concept of alpha and beta to manipulate men to think a certain way. The game niggas do it too, to manipulate men to think a certain way. To, especially when it comes to operating with women. The game and Mac niggas want you to think a certain way so you can allow you to accept open relationships and accept being a certain way so that women can be a certain way so they can give access to pussy. That's what that is. When it comes to the game niggas and Manosphere niggas, the Manosphere red pill niggas and the red pill rage guys, they want you to operate a certain way too, right? But if you listen to the game niggas and the red pill and the Manosphere niggas, where they overlap is that, they interact with each other and they want y'all to treat all the women like hoes, so 3 or 4. You understand? And they want you to think a certain way to allow women's access sexually, to gain access to women sexually. That's what it is. None of it is about masculinity or men and any of that. It's all about manipulating men, especially the younger men who don't know the idea of masculinity or hierarchy or whatever else, because a lot of younger men, especially in Black culture, they've been raised by women or the gynocracy or feminism, right, in the household. So we're going to get into it today, right? We're going to get into this. And I think the Angry Man, he did something on this, but I can't find the video. So I had to go do my own research, and I had to go look at what these things were, right? Alpha, the leader, dominant, competitive, takes charge. Beta, the second in command in the original Wolfpack model. The Alpha's lieutenant, loyal but not the top dog. Now, this is the objective breakdown, right? We're going to get into the subjective breakdown. Now, a lot of niggas on the internet would tell you you're beta because you want a monogamous situation with a woman, or you want to tie a woman down, or you think this way if you expect a woman to be sexually chaste, or you're weak or for holding women accountable. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Right. I'm going to break down the max and the players in this video too, but I'm going to do a separate video as well to do a further breakdown, right? This one is more focused on the hierarchy of men. But no, most of what they attach a beta's thinking to in the Manosphere spaces and the game and Mac nigga spaces, they attach it to men being weak. Or they attach it to men. When I say being weak, they'll tell her the game and Mac niggas will say you're a beta if you want a monogamous situation with a woman. You expect to hold the woman accountable, and you're an alpha if you don't hold a woman accountable, and you're an alpha if you give a shit about a woman's body count. That's what the game and Mac niggas say. In the Manosphere and the red pill guys, they'll say you're a beta if you, with them too, they'll say you're a beta if you want to be in a monogamous situation and you don't want to be out here fucking hoes all day. Right? So this is why I'm so fucking pissed with the game and Mac niggas and the Manosphere and red pill niggas, because y'all fucked up the hierarchy of men and you took the hierarchy of men or the hierarchy framework of men to manipulate the younger men to adjust to how the women are behaving and responding for the benefit of access to pussy. And that get on my nerve. Right? Hold on, my phone is ringing right when I'm doing the video. I'm so disappointed in the space of Manosphere and red pill, especially. Game niggas, they just manipulating your dudes so you can accept open relationships and non-monogamy so they can make it acceptable to fuck your wife, and you can accept 3 or 4 so that, you know, when you condition the men to accept certain things in their society, they're going to allow it. Right? I call it, I applied the Masonic concept of belief, faith, and knowing. Right? In the Moorish Science Temple of America, they call it that too, belief, faith, and knowing. When you convince men to believe in a thing, and then they'll believe in that thing until it becomes faith. Then they have faith into what they believe in, and then it becomes what they believe and have faith in becomes what they know. And then what men tend to do is they tend to shape and construct and lead the environment based upon their beliefs, faiths, and their knowing. So that's what the game niggas is doing. They're just using shaming and police mechanisms to manipulate men into thinking a certain way so that they can allow the women to be 304s for their own personal gain, not because of masculinity or manhood. They want you dudes to accept the 304 culture, women being promiscuous. They want you to accept these things, even though regardless of the objective facts are telling you that that's going to be the ruin to any society. Right. So the Manosphere and the red pill rage niggas, they have their reasons for it too. Like it just disgusts me how they took the hierarchy thing and trying to condition men to think a certain way instead of getting men to be confident in the position they're in. Right. Delta, the true average guy, blends into the crowd, not a leader, not a rebel, just living life. This is the Delta who makes up the majority of society. Right? They're the everyday guy that's overlooked. Gamma, the frustrated intellectual, feels overlooked, sometimes resentful. Omega, the outcast, the bottom of the hierarchy, often mocked or rejected. Sigma, outside the hierarchy entirely. Lone wolf doesn't follow alpha or beta system, but still commands respect, right? Now let me talk about the Omega right quick. See, in Black culture, the men who are the betas, the deltas, have become the Omegas. Because in Black culture, And then the omegas in Black culture have become the alphas. Let me explain. In Black culture, if you say you're an average brother, you go to work, you're not gangbanging, you're not hugging the block, you're not being irresponsible with your Johnson, you're a disciplined person like a Russell Wilson, right? You now become a square or lame or a sucker. So in Black culture, the actual alpha, the beta, and the delta, you've become the omegas. And the omegas in Black culture, who are the Pookies, the Ray Rays, the Doug nigga, or the gangbang. Even though Doug niggas and gangbangers, there's an alpha, beta, and delta hierarchy over there too. But they have become the omegas. So the losers of Black culture that Black women give their box open to are the actual omegas, but they've become the alphas. The responsible men who are supposed to be the alphas, the betas, and the deltas, they have become the omegas in Black culture. That's how flipped upside down Black culture is. Where the confusion comes from pop culture, especially red pill spaces, started using beta equal weak average dude, which isn't how it was originally used. Originally, beta wasn't weak. It meant capable, second in command, who didn't want the alpha spotlight. Delta is actually closer to the average ordinary model. Let me fix this so y'all can see this properly. No fault. Okay, there it is. Delta is actually closer to the average ordinary man in the expanded hierarchy models. In strict hierarchy, beta is above delta, but in modern slang, people often use beta equaling the average or weaker man. That's why it gets confusing. Beta equals average dude is how most people on YouTube, Twitter use it today. But in a more layered breakdown, beta equals strong but submissive to alpha, like a lieutenant. Delta equals everyday average guy. What a beta actually is: second in command, not submissive weakling. A beta supports the alpha but has its own strengths, skills, and independence. Checks the alpha if the alpha gets reckless, lazy, or loses vision. The beta is often the first to challenge him. Sometimes he becomes the alpha, can stand alone. A strong beta doesn't need the alpha. He just chooses the role because it suits his temperament. Adaptive. Betas can shift into alpha mode when circumstances demand. This is what a beta alpha hybrid is. This is like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, if you listen to him talk, he's a beta. If you look at Tony Yayo and Uncle Murder, they're betas, the 50. They just accept their position. You understand? And beta is a sigma with the alpha traits. Example, Mike Tyson at his core, beta energy. He was trained and guided and loyal to Customato, his alpha figure mentor. In the ring, alpha alter ego, pure dominance, fair leader of the pack. In life, sometimes pull back into beta mode because he wasn't naturally trying to lead. He just wanted to do his thing. That's to expect the perfect example of what I'm saying. A beta can be just as dangerous as an alpha, but his role is different. Now, mind you, Mike Tyson has a alpha alter ego, and then he has a base who, when he's being himself. When he's being himself, he's emotional, he's intelligent, soft-spoken. When he snaps into Iron Mike, that's a problem, right? How the internet manipulates this. They sell beta equals weak simp, alpha equals Chad boss, oversimplification. This manipulation works because young men don't know the nuance. They only hear don't be a beta instead of betas are strong but play a different position. Truth is, weak men exist in every category, even weak alpha who are just loud but incompetent. Strength isn't about the label, it's about how you operate in your role. The reality of hierarchy. Alpha equals leadership, vision, charisma. Beta, strength, discipline, second in command. Challenger when needed. Delta equals the average, the crowd. Sigma, outside the system. Independent lone wolf, which means a strong beta is way higher than a weak alpha or a delta. The hierarchy isn't fixed like a video game. It shifts depending on who's really strong and competent. So this is the thing about human beings, because we're complex and we can learn traits from each other. We're like a sponge, and we have different personality types, right? Like I'm a ISTP personality type. I am a Sigma. But my ISTP personality type is not like a, say, for example, I think Angry Man, he's an INTP or something like that. So his Sigma is different from my Sigma. My Sigma type, we're more hands-on. We learn from doing things rather than reading a book. Like, I never had to read a book or fully read a paragraph to come to a conclusion or to understand what was being said. And then I work better off of my hands. Like, you find figures like me in the military, playing football, martial arts, and I can learn the martial arts. I can put on the YouTube right now, look at a kata, and learn the kata from just watching it. I don't need to go to a class to do that. Now, I will go to a MMA gym because there's maybe some kind of coaching I need to upgrade my game, or maybe some things I need to fix. But pretty much, I can learn most of the stuff by myself, right? And then I'm a Taurus, Gemini cusp, but at the same time, I have ADHD. So there's all of that going on, right? So, you know, that, so then you have sigmas, alphas, then you have betas, and then you have deltas. But they have different personality types. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us, you might have two sigmas in the room, both may have different personality types. Or you may have two alphas in the room, both may have different personality types, right? Then you have the zodiac signs, and then all the others, and then your upbringing too, right? So when I said betas are not weak, a beta is a second in command. Sometimes they check the alpha, sometimes they don't follow. I basically exposed the whole internet grift. People weaponize these terms to shame and control men instead of teaching the actual functional roles. So basically, in addition to this, the men don't want to hold the women accountable to the men because they would have to hold the women accountable to a standard. And because most men in society are traditional, you would have to hold the women accountable to a traditional standard. What was the traditional standard? The traditional standard was based off the Victorian era. The men of the Victorian age did not date women who were 304s, who had a big ass body count. The men dated women who were sexually chaste or virgins, right? And even during the Victorian age, you had a separate. You had women who were good women or ladies, and then you had 304s or brothel workers. The play and the Mac niggas understand they have to change how the men are thinking so that the men can accept the 304s in society. Why? Because the game of Mac niggas, what they're doing is they're smashing all the women. They're poisoning the dating pool for the men, right? If the men start complaining about what's going on into the dating pool now, right? And they start holding women accountable now to a certain standard, the player game and Mac niggas lose access to box in the box economy. So that's why the player and Mac niggas are trying to manipulate you younger men to think a certain way. You understand? They want you to think away. So now you can allow the 304s, you can allow the promiscuous women for their benefit, not for your benefit. Right? The red pill niggas and I guess the Manosphere niggas, they're taking the alpha and beta concept to manipulate men into honestly I don't know at this point, because there's so many different alpha and red pill guys and different ideologies that's going on over there, right? And then when you watch them debate women and shit, it's like surface level stuff. It's not really broken down properly. And they like to argue with hoes and 304s a lot, right? But basically, this is what they're doing. They weaponize this to manipulate men to accept and low-tier women. Right. Who deltas are? The average man, hardworking, steady, reliable, often invisible in social spotlight. Not leaders, not lone wolves, not outcasts. They blend into the system, functional but overlooked. Society depends on them to keep things running, but they rarely get recognition. Socially neutral, they neither dominate nor rebellious, mostly follow rules or norms. Now the deltas, when they wake the fuck up or they decide to make a shift, like with the passport bros, a lot of the passport bros were deltas. That's when society starts to focus on them, especially in black culture, because the men who were deltas in black culture, they were keeping the structure of the black community. And so now, and there was an unspoken Negro contract that a lot of men, including the Deltas, were hip to, right? You had the alpha niggas in Black culture that would police and shame the Delta men into accepting unruly Black women for the benefit of Box and Punani. So now when the Deltas decided to say fuck it and go somewhere else, the Black community was going to lose its structure. And it would have exposed who were the actual problem. It would have exposed the women who were picking stupid niggas, and it would have exposed the men who were actually causing problems, the player and the Mac niggas who were actually causing the problems. And then the women would have to now hold themselves accountable and then hold the alpha niggas and the actual losers of the community up to a standard. In other words, what I mean when I say that, see, the game that the player niggas and the max play, right? How they play is that they don't offer the provision or the protection thing up front, right? They only offer dick up front. So now, how does that benefit them? Because they don't have to do the protector role, they don't have to do the provision role, they don't have to do any of that in the dating market, right? And what happens with the women, right? The women, they have a roster. So then they'll find a nigga that is willing to pay her bills, who's doing all that other stuff. So hold on, let me slow down and articulate it better. All right, so let me slow it down and articulate it more properly. So here's how the dating scene has been going on for a while now, right? You would have Black women who would have a roster, right? On their roster, they would have the guy that's taking them to the movies, the guy that's talking to them, the guy that's the friend zone, the guy that saved that food in her phone, right? Then they'd have the player or the Mac niggas that saved in her phone as dick, as a smash buddy or fuck buddy, right? So the alpha niggas or the player Mac niggas, the so-called alphas, right? How they would benefit? They'd benefit because they don't have to be the full-time dude. They don't have to be the nigga that has to protect, provide, and produce. They get to be part-time. They get to be just dick alone only. While the other groups of men had to play the other roles. What that did was that now the women, they don't have to step their game up to earn the top best man based on protection, provision, and producing, right? They get to now stay where they're at in the game, and they get to benefit from having the nigga that's going to pay her food, the nigga that's going to take her out on a date, the nigga that, basically those men are doing everything that the nigga that's giving her dick don't have to do. You understand? So now that fucked up the game, because now the men who were willing to do all the protection and the provision and all that stuff, they were not getting access to top tier women. Top tier women would be given access to niggas who are not doing shit. So that downgraded the box, the quality of the box and the quality of the woman. Now that the deltas, the average men, woke up to it now. So those men said, fuck it. We're not going to keep providing a value to get a woman that doesn't match the value that I'm bringing to the table. If you expect me to do all these things for a woman that is not sexually chaste, she's out here giving her box to everybody, which way in the third, I'm not doing that. And so the deltas said, fuck it. I'm going to go become a passport bro. The alphas or the players or the betas, I'm going to explain that a bit later, right? The alpha niggas, who are the players, the max, and the pimps, they saw that, fuck, the deltas are going to leave. Meaning that now we can't just be the dick nigga. We no longer can sit here and be Pookie, Ray Ray, and Bumps. We now have to step our game up to get access to the women, because the deltas are no longer filling that sucker role or that sucker role that they were filling for the women. So then you would have seen who was causing the problem in Black culture, because the structure was no longer there. So they had to shame the passport bros who were deltas from doing what they're doing or from staying with Black culture to fill those roles. So you wouldn't notice who was the problem. It's like when Donald Trump said, drain the swamp, right? And when every time you drain a swamp, you get to see how the riverbed is. You get to see the parasites. You get to see the worms. You might see the poisoning that was in the environment or ecosystem fucking it up. So when now, my bad. So now when the deltas were going to leave, they were draining the swamp. The good men, they were leaving the structure, and the structure would have failed. And all the men that would have been left would have been the player max and the Pookies and Ray Rays, the low tier quality of men. And those low tier quality of men, they would have to step the game up, because now they have to now fill the role of not only dick, they got to be the protector, the provider, and the producer, which they were not doing. Now, let me explain this now. See, deltas, where the deltas had it fucked up, is that you were tricked by the boomer men to provide the protection, provision, and value for Black women who are not worthy or met your expectation. They tricked y'all into dealing with women who are rebellious, disrespectful. The boomer men tricked you guys into accepting happy wife, happy life situations. Right? They tricked them into that. And then you had a lot of the Delta men who were raised by their single mamas. You understand? And they watched their mamas treat average, everyday good men like shit, but treat the low-tier Pookies and Ray Rays and Player Mac niggas much better. Right? So the Deltas woke up to that. And they say, fuck it, I'm going to leave and find better women elsewhere, which is what masculine men do. That's what men do. Men have done that all the time. Genghis Khan did that. This is how all of China are linked to Genghis Khan DNA and genetics. That's what nature does, right? Percentage of deltas. Most hierarchy models, like those extrapolated from Wolfpack analogies or human societal studies, roughly suggest 5 to 10% alpha, 10 to 20% beta, 5 to 10% sigma, 60 to 7% delta, 5 to 10% zeta or omega. So delta are the largest proportion of men, often 60 to 7%, depending on how you define delta versus beta versus delta. They are the invisible majority, normally average, functional, rarely disrupt or dominant. They can be pushed around by alphas or sigma rebels, or they can rise under the right conditions. So, deltas, they can raise up on you, right? If they recognize that there's some fuck shit going on in society, they will raise up. Key points about deltas. Underestimated. Most people assume power comes from being an alpha or sigma, but society literally runs on delta's stable foundation. Deltas are the workforce, the community backbone, the ones keeping the system running. Potential energy in the right environment. A delta can rise to beta or even alpha status if ambition, skill, or opportunity align. Right? Delta, core identity. The delta is an average functional man in society. He's not seeking leadership like an alpha, not rebelling like a sigma, and not desperate for attention like a zeta. Stability, routine, and predictability define his existence. So in Black culture, that's considered boring or square lane, right? Personality traits: responsible and reliable, shows up for work, family, and commitments. Often the backbone of communities, workplaces, and households. Average social presence, not loud, flashy, or attention-seeking. Blends in, avoids standing out unless necessary. Rule follower, conforms to social norms and expectations. Respects authority but doesn't actively challenge or dominate. Practical and realistic, thinks in concrete terms, not abstract. Focuses on survival, stability, and immediate concerns rather than long-term visions. Now, remember when I said that the player Mac niggas is trying to change up the social norms and expectations to get you deltas to adapt to it? This is what I mean. All right. If they can shift the deltas to think a certain way, because you got to look at it like this, right? You have the macro management of a society or the objective game. Then you have the individual game or the micromanagement. The macro management is how men, manage the society, law, government, public versus private sectors, labor force, et cetera, et cetera. What's the micromanagement? How you manage your home life, Like you as an individual manage your own relationship, your own business affairs, especially when it comes to making a family. So if they could get the deltas to accept 3 or 4s on the micro level, that then becomes the macro level. You understand? So it's from a grassroots foundation, right? The deltas are the foundation, micromanaging family, in the context of the nuclear family. They now raise the children up to become the labor force in the macro society or the thinking society. So if the Mac and player niggas can manipulate the deltas into accepting certain social norms like hookup culture, promiscuity, non-monogamy, open relationships, then the deltas would accept that as a social norm. They'll accept that as a belief, then they'll fake in it, then they'll know it, and they'll forge the environment into that. Right? Cautious, or risk-averse, avoids unnecessary danger or confrontation. Prefers stability over adventure or chaos. Loyal and committed. Loyal to family, friends, and community. Values consistency and long-term relationships. This is what they call in the red pill spaces and the Manosphere spaces. They call you a beta if you value this. Predictability, or they call you feminine. Predictability, routine orientated, lives life by routine, doesn't seek to disrupt or innovate. This can make him seem boring to outsiders, but he provides security and consistency. That's what the women go look towards for when they finish the whole phase. And the deltas have a right to say, fuck that, I don't want that. Behavioral patterns, works hard to provide both, but doesn't seek glory. So let me explain that. So what was happening was in Black culture, and I can speak for Black culture, you had the alphas that were part of the pimp and player Mac culture, right? So in general, right, in objective scheme of things, when you talk about alpha in the hierarchy of men, this is their function and role in the objective game. When you get to the subjective game, right? You'll say you have a Christian versus a Muslim. You're going to have an alpha, beta, sigma, deltas, all that hierarchy of Christianity, or Muslim, or shout out to Captain Tazario of the Hebrew Israelites. And they're going to clash with each other because they have different belief systems. They have a different belief, faith, and knowing system. Right, so an alpha of Christianity is going to clash with an alpha of Islam because their belief systems are different. So now when you talk about the player Mac culture and all that other stuff, you have alphas, betas, deltas, and sigmas of that culture who clash with the men who are more traditional. So you may have an alpha that's a player clashing with an alpha that's more traditional. Or a sigma that's more traditional going against another sigma that's more player Mac. Same thing with the beta and the deltas, right? So what happened in Black culture because of, and I think I created a breakdown of that. I'm gonna find it. What happened was during the Vietnam War, a lot of the traditional men went to go fight in Vietnam. So if you watch the movie Dead Presidents, what happened? When the brother went to go fight in Vietnam, what was left? The player pimp was left. So the alphas who were players and pimps, they were dictating Black culture. They were giving them a new brand of masculinity in Black culture. You understand? So now that created a leadership vacuum when a lot of Black men during the Vietnam War went to go fight in Vietnam. Now, lucky enough, you had the Nation of Islam that was trying to get rid of the player and Mac culture, get rid of the drugs and the dope in the community. But sadly enough, it wasn't enough, right? So now what became the new standard of Black masculinity was the alpha, the Black exploitation era. That became the new standard of masculinity in Black culture. So this is what happened. So now the men who were responsible, who were the deltas, the alpha, and the betas that were responsible Black men, traditional Black men, they now became the square, lame, and sucker, as according to what alphas say are lame and suckers. The alphas of the player Mac culture say are lame and suckers. And then they taught the women they taught the women or trained the women to that language system. This is what the problems we're running in today. So now, if today, because you call black men who are like what happened with Russell Wilson, he is an alpha. When you call black men square, lame, and sucker, and then you attach it to how we dress, then you attach it to how we talk, and then if we play video games, we're weird or nerd. Now, when I go to approach a black woman in the street, based upon how I dress and how I talk, automatically she's going to view me as a square or lame. And she can either choose to respect me, or because in black culture, when you see a square or lame, the women tend to like not disrespect them because they're taught to disrespect those dudes by the player and the max. And they're taught to take advantage of those dudes by the player and the max. So now every time a black man who's dressed like a square, dressed like a lame, talks like that, according to what black culture says the square or lame, black women don't respect him and then look to take advantage of him. Right? So hopefully I articulated that properly. All right, so this is that. Behavioral patterns. Works hard to provide but doesn't seek glory. Avoids conflict unless forced into them. Often overshadowed by alphas or sigmas, but quietly keeps things functioning. Likely to follow instructions rather than make radical decisions. Can be content or frustrated depending on life circumstances. Sometimes unaware of potential influences of opportunities. Arose. Delta archetype summary. Role in society, the foundation, the majority. The reliable backbone, strength, stability, loyalty, diligence, practical problem solving. Weaknesses, often overlooked. Lacks ambition for leadership, may struggle with recognition or self-actualization. Social type, average, unassuming, but necessary for societal function. Real-world examples of Delta men. A dependable co-worker who never seeks the spotlight. Long-term family man who quietly provides. Skilled tradesman, technician, or community workers who maintain infrastructure without fanfare. All right. Beta male personality type. Core identity. The beta is second in command. Loyal supporter and stabilizer in the community. Not seeking spotlight. Like an alpha, but strong, capable, and respected within the circle. Often acts as the check or balance for alpha, ensuring the group doesn't go off track. Personality traits. Loyal and supportive. Faithful to friends, family, and leaders. He respects, provides stability and backup for those in position of authority. Observant and calculating. Watches dynamic carefully. Notice that what others miss. Knows when to speak, when to act, and when to step back. Confident but not dominant. He has self-assurance and skills, but doesn't need to dominate socially. Can hold his ground when challenged, but usually follows a competent alpha. Adaptive. Can flex into leadership if the alpha fails or if circumstances demand it. Can also act as an alpha-beta hybrid, stepping up strategically when needed. Practical, resourceful. Problem solver. Tactically minded, focuses on results over appearances. Skilled at execution rather than theorizing. Calm under pressure, doesn't panic, can think logically when situations are tense. Provides reassurance and direction when needed. Behavioral patterns, supports leadership but evaluates incompetence. Can challenge the alpha discreetly if leadership is flawed. Maintains respect from peers through competence and reliability. Often acts as a mentor or guide behind the scenes. Strengths, loyal, reliable, competent. Provides balance, stability in social and professional groups. Can rise to alpha if the opportunity presents itself. Often quiet but formidable force. Dangerous when pushed. Weakness. May remain in a supportive role for too long. Underutilizing potential. Can be overshadowed by flashy alphas or vocal sigmas. Sometimes struggles with ambition if overly comfortable in a beta role. Now, I may be a sigma, but I'm not going to rebel against some shit just for no reason. Like, I'm smart enough to understand that if the structure works, it works. What I do is I will challenge things to get people to fix the structure. Right? So I'm not going to be rebellion against something that, I'm seeing is working. I'm seeing that it's properly done. And I don't need to say anything about it. You feel me? So, betas is a rare, strong archetype. True betas are second in command, highly competent, loyal, and adaptive. They're not weak, average dudes. that social media makes them out to be. In terms of population, betas are actually rarer than deltas, roughly 10 to 20% of men, depending on how strictly you define them. While rare, they combine strength and loyalty without needing to dominate like an alpha. They can check or challenge alphas when necessary, a skill not many men naturally have. They're capable of stepping into alpha roles if circumstances demand, but most stay in their beta position intentionally. Keyword intentionally, right? Because sigmas do it too, and we're going to go into the difference between a sigma and a beta. But to be an alpha, that's a lot of responsibility. You have to assume that's a lot of attention that a lot of sigmas don't like the spotlight. I don't like the spotlight like that, right? And you got to lead other people. You got to kind of be, when you're a leader of men, you have to be kind of cold. You understand? That's what women don't understand about leadership. Trait, social role. Beta second in command, loyal, can challenge the alpha. Delta, average, blends and follows the rules. Strength, high competence, adaptive, strategic. Functional but unremarkable. Visibility, moderate, respected within circles. Low, mostly unnoticed. Rarity, 10 to 20%. 60 to 70%. Potential, can rise to alpha or hybrid roles, usually stays in the average role. Why beta stays second in command intentionally? Power without burden. Being an alpha comes with constant pressure to perform, lead and defend dominance. Betas can exercise influence and respect without the constant visibility of responsibility. Now, me, unique to me, I don't mind competing. I don't mind being dominant. I don't mind any of that. I think that's where my Taurus energy comes from. Because Taurus can grind and be very dominant, whether they're beta, alphas, or sigmas, right? So I don't mind being a dominant nigga. I just don't like the damn spotlight when it comes to it, right? Betas can exercise influence and respect without constant visibility and responsibility. Example, Mike Tyson was loyal to Customato. His alpha, gaining training, strategy, and protection while building his own strength quietly. Stability and security. By staying loyal to a competent alpha, betas secure their own position, resources, and social standing. They avoid unnecessary conflict while still holding leverage in the hierarchy. Flexibility, strategic adaptation. Betas can step into alpha roles when circumstances demand, but often they operate in a role that maximizes efficiency and safety. This allows them to observe, learn, and act at the right moment instead of constantly overexposing themselves. Influence without friction. By being the beta, you can shape the alpha's decision, subtly giving guidance, providing checks, or even redirecting outcomes. Without draining any fire or envy like an alpha might, long-term positioning, betas are that's the other thing I don't like being in the alpha position. Because when you're the top nigga in black culture, that's a target on your back. You know what I'm saying? And I don't like moving. Like, my kind of Taurus energy, I dominate quietly. Like, you don't see me coming. You're going to see me broke one day or for one time period. And then in the next time period of Brett, you're going to see me step up on your ass. But you'll never see it coming, though. Right, and I like it like that. Betas thinking ahead, where I can maximize my influence and security over time. They intentionally choose a role that balances visibility, power, and risk. Key takeaway: a beta isn't lazy, weak, or passive. He's deliberately positioning himself in the social hierarchy to gain the most leverage, respect, and power without taking on alpha's constant battles. How beta overlaps with sigma. Independent thinking. Like sigmas, betas are self-reliant and strategic. They don't blindly follow the alpha. They analyze, observe, and act on their own judgment. Selective engagement. Betas interact with the hierarchy when it benefits them or the group. Much like sigmas selectively engage social structures. Ability to operate outside the spotlight. Sigmas are lone wolves. Betas stay in the pack, but their influence is subtle, quiet, and often unnoticed. A sigma-like approach within the alpha-beta framework. Adaptive energy. Betas can flex into alpha roles or take leadership in crisis, just as sigma step into situations as needed, without permanently seeking dominance. Respect-based influence. Both betas and sigmas gain organic respect through competence, skill, and reliability, not by forcing social dominance. Now, I guess some of you bitches on the train, ladies, my bad. The train are gonna be like, see, we like the sigmas better than the alpha. No. You need a dominant nigga to step. be loud and aggressive in certain situations. Key distinction. Betas operate inside the hierarchy, strategically positioned as second in command. Influences come from loyalty, competence, and subtle checks on the alpha. Sigma operates outside the hierarchy, independent of alphas or betas. Influence comes from self-reliance and personal power. So you can think of a strong beta as a sigma hybrid within the hierarchy. He follows the rules but bends them intelligently, maintains independence, and can assert power strategically when needed. This is why you could kind of mistake a beta for a sigma or a sigma for a beta, right? Delta men maintain structure. The deltas are the backbone of the Black community. They provide stability, responsibility, and long-term investment, relationships, children, and societal order. Players max and game men exploit the system. These men benefit from the chaos and promiscuity because deltas historically absorb the fallout. They end up being the settlers for women who have been involved with lower quality men. Shaming delta men is strategic, so I did put it in here. By shaming delta men, shaming passport bros for seeking better women abroad. Players of Mac type men protect their access to women and maintain control. If deltas remove themselves, the flaws in women's selection patterns would become obvious, leaving only the low quality opportunistic men around. The game is about keeping the deltas tethered to the women so the players and max have ongoing access and control. That's the game. Masculinity and migration of men. Historically, men seeking better women outside their immediate environment is natural and masculine. Example, Genghis Khan, Vikings, men traveling, conquering, and mating with women of other cultures to improve genetic, social, and strategic outcomes. In this day and age, Black men don't have to conquer anybody. He don't got to go to China and conquer the Chinese. He don't have to go to the Netherlands and conquer them. He don't have to go to Japan and conquer the Japanese. He don't got to go to Korea and conquer the Koreans. He don't got to go to wherever else and conquer those women, like the white man has had to. Black men just have to be his motherfucking self. Adapt to whatever culture that's there and be himself. Be his natural charismatic self, and he gonna get pussy. Objective game, making decisions about life. So let me explain this. See, the traits that the delta and the average man have that Black culture calls square and lame and sucker and losers are women of other cultures actually value that. But what the game and player niggas say, well, those women are just doing it for your money, not for who you are. How the fuck does a player Mac know that? Have they ever been to these places? I'll guarantee you not. They've never been to these places and studied the game or studied the environment to see if these women actually value the passport bros who go there, or they're just looking for their money. They're just working off a hearsay. All right. So, objective game. Making decisions about life, women, and alliances based on reality and results rather than ego or subjective influence from others. Subjective game. So this is me breaking down what subjective and objective game is, right? Objective game. Making decisions about life, women, and alliances based on reality and results. Rather than ego or subjective influence from others, subjective game. Trying to manipulate men into operating like player mag archetypes so women stay available for them. The exploit. Players max benefit from delta men taking care of women who have been promiscuous. So let me break down when I tell you the difference between the subjective game versus the objective game. Let me see if I can find that. I think I have it in here. No, it's not this. Give me a moment. I had it in here. somewhere. No, not that. Not that. Hold on. Go here and find it. Make sure you click like and share the video because I'm going to be creating a lot of content like this. I thought I had it. Okay, I found it. Let me save it and put it into a box, a folder for future. Okay. PDF. All right, so I'm gonna break down. I think in this, I broke down the difference between the objective game and the subjective game. Oh yeah, I even put the misuse. All right, got stuff in here. Yeah, misuse of alpha and beta. All right. I think it was this one. Might do this again. All right. So who has game? Who doesn't? Who has game versus who doesn't? Defining game. Start with. When we talk about game, we're not just talking about dating a woman. Game is life. Every man is playing the game of life because we live in a man's world built by men. Game is strategies, the wisdom, the lessons, the decisions you use to navigate the world. Everything is game. But the question is, who has strong game and who has weak game? That's where we need to break it down, right? I thought I had a breakdown of the objective game versus the subjective game. My fault if this is the wrong one. Anyway, I can explain it here. I can explain it myself, right? So, what's the objective game? The objective game is the game of life, like I said earlier, right? It's the game of life we live in, right? And the game of life is based on reality, right? And each man in the game of life, we're trying to live, we're trying to play the game to win. We are using the strategies, the experiences, and what we've learned from the environment to conquer and tame the environment, whether it be for personal reasons or as a group or society. When it comes to your individual game, subjective to yourself, the individual game is how you yourself define your identity, how you operate within the world in the game of life, how you express yourself in the game of life. When it comes to a society like America, for example, the objective game is the Constitution, for example. The objective game in America is the Constitution. Nobody is higher than the law of the land, which is the Constitution. Now, what's the subjective part about that? You have each state that has their own state constitution, and they operate differently based on their constitution. But that state constitution doesn't supersede the constitution of the federal government of America, right? So let's apply that to dating. Let's apply that to life. A black culture, right? Black culture has a certain objective identity that they want all black people to express themselves as. But I myself, as an individual, my subjective game, I say a certain part about black culture and the expectation of how my identity is supposed to be that I don't like. So I decided to say, fuck that. I'm going to make my own identity. I'm going to structure my own identity, how I move, how I operate within the game of black culture, whether they like me or not. So that's the difference between objective game and game subjective to yourself as an individual. So there's two layers to the game: the objective game and the subjective game that's subjected to the individual and how you operate, right? Remember, the objective game is the game of life, right? And when you talk about the world of men, men create raw laws, rules, and structure in the game of life to give the game of life structure within the chaos, right? For example, my house is the structure to protect me from the game of nature, because the game of nature can be chaos and unpredictable. So the house is the constitution, right? What's the constitution? The house has a foundation, it has columns, right? It has a roof, it has an HVAC system, it has air conditioning, it has a water, plumbing, electricity that gives me light. That's the structure. That's this. The house is given the game of nature structure. What's the subjective game? Me, the individual, on how I operate with inside my house. Peep game, right? So I hope y'all can learn something from that. Let's go. Let's get it in. I'll show you. Let me put the right thing in here. No, where's the other shit that I had? Okay, this one works better. Okay, objective game, making decisions about life, women, and alliances based on reality and results rather than ego or subjective influence from others. Subjective game, trying to manipulate men into operating like player mag archetypes so as women stay available for them. So what I mean by that, and I think I explained it earlier, the player mag niggas want to manipulate other men to become their archetype, because now if most of the men are operating like the players where they're treating all the women like hoes and they're willing to wife up or be in open relationships, those niggas benefit from that environment. So now they if you're a man and you expect monogamy and you expect your woman to be sexually chaste or virgin, those mags are going to shame you and call you, say, why are you so obsessed with virgins, or use a typical feminist shaming tactic. You're insecure, bro. You can't control no woman. All of these are policing mechanisms that player max use to get men to accept certain things, right? Players max benefit from Delta men taking care of women who have been promiscuous. Deltas are shamed into accepting low quality women because if they don't, the system collapses and exposing who the real problem is. The objective masculine choice. Example, past rebels leaving to find better women abroad threatens the system the players max have set up. The game is ensuring men operate subjectively relative to the players' rules rather than operating objectively and according to their own masculine standard. The masculine standard has been traditional. That's what the objective standard is, right? What this reveals about masculinity. Real masculinity is strategic, self-aware, and principled. It's not about dominating flashy alpha behavior or playing women. It's about making choices based on reality, competence, and long-term outcomes. Society often misrepresents this because the loud, visible archetypes play a max on manipulate perception to benefit themselves. Now, it's not wrong with a nigga being flashy. Not wrong with a nigga being dominant. Like that's like you're gonna find alphas are like that in general. So there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that when you have an alpha from a different hierarchy or system trying to manipulate other men to accept their reality, right? That's where it becomes a problem. What a delta male is. So I already broke this down. I don't think I need to go through this again. Oh, I do need to go through this again. What a delta male is. Hard worker, stable, reliable. He's a backbone of society, not flashy, not a leader, blah, blah, blah. Delta versus corny, lame, square. Corny trying hard to socially missing the mark. So this is what we call the deltas in Black culture, right? Social disengaged, boring, now vibing with the culture. So vibing with Black culture is to be a gangbanger, thug nigga, hug the block, go to prison, etc., etc., etc. Square, rigid, overly conventional, too safe. By the book. The delta male isn't necessary any of these. But to the outsider who only values flash, charisma, or cultural cool points, he might appear that way because he doesn't seek the spotlight, mistaken as lame. He avoids unnecessary risk, mistaken as square. He might be socially plain, mistaken as corny. In reality, the delta male is actually the most underappreciated archetype. He's not lame, he's reliable. He's not a square, he's structured. He's not corny, he's authentic, just not flashy. But since Black culture often overvalues charisma, trend setting, and vibe, deltas get mislabeled as lame square because they don't perform cultural coolness the way alphas or charismatic betas do. Answer: the delta male can be mislabeled as lame or square in Black culture, not because he actually is, but because he's quiet, dependable energy, doesn't align with the performative standards of cool. And what's being cool again? Being a knuckleheaded nigga, smoking weed and gangbang and hugging the block. Right. Do I have another slide on here? I might put the player Mac niggas to shame. So I'm gonna give you a preview of that. Give you a preview of that. I'm gonna put this in there. I'll give you a preview of that. Is this it? Yeah. So this is a preview. Cultural context of Black masculinity. Black men are expected to fit cultural norms. Deviation, often labeled as lame, square, or outsider. Cultural identity pressures men into roles wrote about Black women, often gangster thugs or low-tier men. Traditional men maintaining standards face shaming for not aligning with these norms. Historical disruption of traditional authority. Events like Vietnam War, crack epidemic, NAFTA, and welfare state removed traditional men from communities. This absence allowed player, Mac, and pimp archetypes to dominate social and dating structures. It's like that movie Dead Presidents that I mentioned, right? Where one of the main characters, he went to the Vietnam War, and by the time he came back, a pimp was looking after his woman, right? This absence allowed player, Mac, and pimp archetypes to dominate social and dating structures. Traditional men historically policed and held societal order. Removal led to chaos in dating and sexual hierarchies. Players, Macs, and policing mechanisms. Players and Macs use shaming tactics to maintain sexual and cultural control. Target traditional men through critiques of monogamy and traditional expectations, publicly labeling men weak, insecure, or controlling. Using feminist influence language to manipulate women's perception. Mechanisms to show player dominance in the dating market and maintains access to women. Now, you're going to tell me I'm dirty macking. But when a player nigga comes out here and he dirty macks on traditional niggas all day, is that not him dirty macking? He just hides it behind masculine principles and masculinity. Dirty macking framework, definition, publicly undermining and manipulating men in front of women to gain relational or sexual advantage. Players dirty mac traditional men by accusing them of insecurity for upholding traditional standards. Rebranding behaviors, example, alpha and beta misuse. To delegitimize authority, using women's perception to weaponize social position. Traditional men holding standards or critiquing behavior, standards or critiquing behavior are not dirty macking. So a traditional nigga that's holding men and women up to the traditional standards, he's not dirty macking because it's his house that he built. And it's his job it's the alpha's job to hold the hierarchy accountable to certain standards. Right? The alpha cannot hold you to his standards personal to him. he has to hold you accountable to the societal standards that's set. But you got alphas in today that are holding men and women, or especially the men, accountable to his standards, personal, subjective to him. Alphas, betas rebranding as dirty macking. Traditional alpha beta framework. Alpha's leadership and hierarchy adherence, right? Betas are not weak. May operate traditionally as subordinate. Player max misuse. Alpha player promiscuous manipulative. Beta, traditional men seeking monogamy. Purpose, manipulate women's perception and degrade traditional men's standing. That is dirty macking. So the player maxes might disagree with me. You have been dirty macking, and I just told you how you did that, doing that. Counter the player max accusation. When players accuse traditional men of dirty macking or player shaming, they're projecting behaviors that they themselves employ. They use manipulative tactics to control perception, not honest competition. Traditional men are exposing player tactics and maintaining structure, restoring social and sexual order. Direct masculine behavior contrasts with player manipulation, honesty and accountability and clarity. All right. So I would have no issue if the player was honest and holding himself accountable and being clear about his intentions, but he's not. They're not. All right. Current sites, weakness and strengths are not tied to alpha and beta labels. Players weaponize language to language. Traditional men restoring order are righteous. Players attacking standards perpetuate chaos. Exposure of players' tactics by traditional men is necessary to reestablish structured social and dating hierarchies. Historical context underscores that players' dominance is contingent. Without removal of traditional men, their influence would be minimal. Conclusion: traditional men are not dirty macking. They are upholding standards, accountability, and social order. Players manipulate women, degrading traditional authority, and use rebranding and shaming to maintain their hierarchy. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for restoring balance, cultural integrity, and traditional masculine influence in Black culture. So yes, I am targeting the alpha niggas and the player niggas. See, if you guys were standing in your fucking lane and you weren't fucking trying to convince younger men, or manipulating younger men into shit that's going to be destructive and has been destructive in Black community for some time now, I wouldn't say shit. But for too long, I have watched you do your madness. So I'm going to be critiquing you along with the Manosphere and Red Pill niggas. So there's more to come. Anyway, this is Kiss Shorty Gaming Nation. Like, share, and subscribe. Follow the channel. Stay tuned. Bye.